Hello everybody, welcome back to another video. I'm hoping you guys are all having a fantastic day. So today's upload is going to be a video about a potential for a possible storm next week, and I will be discussing furthermore from yesterday's video about the pattern and what's to come across the United States, as there could be quite a bit of activity in terms of the cold weather. Maybe not, a polar vortex, but definitely more chill, more cold air. I would say even Arctic air on the way for the U.S. compared to what we've been seeing. And it seems as if we will be looking at quite a bit of snow potential as well. So let's dive right into this. But before we do, I would like to ask you guys to consider subscribing if you are new to this channel. If this is your first time viewing this video, perchance, check out the channel, check out this my other videos, and see for yourself whether it's worthy of a subscription. Now, if you consistently view this channel, and you like what I do on this channel, consider liking the videos. That's probably the best thing you could do for me. So I would really appreciate that. But otherwise, thank you so much for hitting 17,000 subscribers. It means the world to me. Let's get into this video. So GFS model, Global Forecasting System. Notice again we had that system across the southern U.S. This one was a weird one. I forecasted a couple days ago talking about the potential for it. I never made a follow-up video, but basically some locations in southwestern Kansas got up to 15 inches of snow. A city called Liberal, Kansas got up to 16 inches of snow. And it wasn't across a widespread area, but very few locations got that amount, but some did. Wichita not seeing much out of it, maybe 2 to 3 inches, especially across the suburbs. In the city itself, not too much, but we'll see. It was definitely a potent system, but it's not going to do much across once it moves off to the east. You could see it moves into Missouri, maybe a few isolated inches across south of St. Louis, west of St. Louis, but nothing really significant. Notice this system just kind of shrivels away and really just dies down across the southern U.S. and moves off into the Atlantic Ocean, which by the time it does so, it doesn't pose a big threat. Notice we see a pretty, distinct piece of energy coming from the north. That was earlier in the week considered to, have an impact on this potential northeast system, along with the low pressure from the south. At this point, it seems like there will be a pretty strong storm in the Atlantic, just not across the northeast. So there really is no point in even discussing or making a video about that. I will discuss it a little bit for you, but notice it seems like if these two pieces of energies will have hard time phasing into each other. You can see that there's just a lack of cold air as well with this. I mean, if this was a little bit closer to shore, there definitely would be some snow, but it's not really for the northeast this time. And there will still be plenty of occasions, I'm sure, but it's just one of these storms doesn't seem to be too impactful. A lot of rain for the southern U.S., that's definitely it. And if you live in Nova Scotia, Newfoundland, those locations, Canadian Maritimes, have been getting a lot of snow lately, and it seems like, you'll get some more snow as well out of that system. Notice, this is the weird thing, guys. So right before the big cool down, we'll get this burst of very warm air, Sunday, February 2nd. So for your Super Bowl parties or Super Bowl anything related events, it may be actually very nice and warm. For the first time, almost, the weather has timed itself perfectly this year, where it actually may be beneficial. Look, we get above 32 degrees way into Canada. We get very warm temperatures. Does not last long for the warm weather lovers, but again, we can't complain if you're a warm weather lover. It's been pretty darn mild this whole winter, and there's been a lack of Arctic air, which you should be happy with that. If you're a cold weather lover, good news with this, it won't be long lived. But notice that we could be looking at some pretty warm, mild temperatures. If we were to look at the 2-meter temperature anomalies, it's very warm colors. I wouldn't say a heat wave. I would say a little burst, a little warm up. And you could see that the temperature is really, especially across the southern plains, 50s, 60s. You could definitely be outside for that. Further up north, I wouldn't say you should be outside if it's 34. But it may look finally a little bit more sunny, but again, that's short-lived. As I was saying, the cold air may come pretty promptly afterwards. And with that pattern change from that warm to cold for the past couple of days, it's really become solidified that we'll be looking at this quick warm-up and drastic cooldown. And usually with those colliding air masses, we see some sort of instability, a cold front, and in this case we have a storm. You can see it's a one that develops out of the southwest and sends out a plume of snow across the Midwest. Now exactly how this forms is still very far out, but you can see that it drops quite a bit of snow across those locations in the Midwest, maybe across the Northeast as well. And the cooler air is definitely more sustained. You can see another system, some enhanced energy across the Northeast as well, and then another system towards the southern U.S. So very active, to say the least. This model run is still actually not as active as what the 12Z was showing. The 12Z was showing rather the similar amount of snowstorms. It's just that they were a little bit more intense than this 18Z, and that makes perfect sense as we're still far out from these systems. And it looks as if up until then, up until that next week time frame, will be just, cloudy, a little bit milder than average, nothing warm as what we will be looking at around the Super Bowl time frame. But you can see that it's going to be relatively weather storm-free, not much snow, not much rain, excluding maybe parts of the Northwest where there could be looking at another storm coming in around the Wednesday time frame, Thursday time frame. Some pretty heavy snow for the higher elevations, though it hasn't been too cold, and some heavy rain mainly for the lower elevations and just the moderate leveled places. You can see again that system to the southern U.S., but this was again the 12Z model run from Tuesday, so it still didn't show that northeast system hitting the Northeast, which has been kind of consistent now with the models. But again, look at this. It showed that same system across Tuesday, February 4th. So early next week, we have that system, and it's pretty intense. And we had another system in northeast, more centered system, and then a potential another wave. So you can see it's very active. Again, pattern looks pretty active. I will not really be reporting on a single storm in particular right now, or one in particular, but as it's too far out, and these storms seem to, once they do come, it seems like there will be a frenzy of them. But I just wanted to look at this. Look how, if this were to come out, which we're looking at some of these storms to be pretty impressive, and it's as they coming in through like a certain pattern. They're not like they're not big storms that go into the upper plains, kind of from north to south, dropping big snow on the northwest side of them. They seem, as marked by this GFS model right here, pretty expansive west to east systems that they travel west to east, and along with that they drop loads and loads of potential snow, precip, and these systems are usually the heaviest, the strongest, and usually the most dangerous, as they affect a lot of people, a ton of people. Now, they may not drop ridiculous amounts of snow to the point where it's, 30, 40 inches. Those are usually the north to south systems. But if this were to come true, you could see, the GFS was putting out some pretty large amounts of snow, at the very least, to say, across portions of the Midwest. If this were to load, you could see that it was well over two feet across portions of the Midwest. You can see marked by dark blue colors, and just in general across the West and Northeast. So we'll have to see how this all plays out. The GFS obviously has backed down a little bit slightly on the snowfall amounts ever since then. This only goes out to 270 hours, so it's still going to be higher than what it's showing. This is only from one system. Yeah, a series of storms definitely on their way. If we were to look at, in terms of just the temperatures, the GEFS ensembles, you can see they're marking quite a bit of colder air across the U.S., and it seems like that's a reoccurring pattern with a lot of the models. Probably some brief warm-ups as well coming through associated with the systems. These systems, they have a lot of potency with them, and with that they have a lot of power to change a lot of the pattern. Okay, so really they have the power to change some of this, and you can see probably some influxions of some warmer air coming along with those storms. If we were to look at the EPS, European ensemble numbers, they've been relatively, throughout this winter on the warmer side of things. Volleys showed a little warmer scenario, but even though they are showing, some chillier conditions heading our way, or at least probably the most chilliest we've seen in quite a while. You can see Saturday, February 1st, we have that's a little cool down ahead of this pretty large warm-up that occurs, but then we see more cooler air. By the way, with that big storm occurring on GFS, there's quite a bit of agreement actually among the models. I mean, relatively, a week out. If this were a day out, this would be that would be nothing close to an agreement. But you can see that the one on Tuesday, Monday storm, you can see GFS has it. The Canadian also has it to a certain extent. Just it's more of a north to south system. You can see kind of traveling from the southwest to the northeast. Not really west to east oriented. While the European actually puts out a relatively similar system to what the GFS puts out at the A to Z model run, the latest model run. So that's interesting to see which model will be right. And at this point, even if all of them were wrong, it's just one system. There's many storms behind it, and I just can't really see that storm dying away, as it's not, a nor'easter where a little bit offshore and it's out, a little bit on coast, further on coast, and it's mainly rain for the coastal areas. A lot of variance. This storm for this west to east beast could, go a little bit further to south, to the north, but it'll still affect a lot of locations, as it's a west to east oriented system, and those usually are the most impactful. So that's basically it for today's video, guys. I want to quickly show you just how much snow is going to fall in those locations across Kansas, Wichita, those areas. If you are watching from those locations, you can see not much snow. The current model usually does a very good job with this, and you can see it puts out a few extra inches across southern Kansas, which I think it might be actually a little bit more than what this model shows. And the reason for that is because basically the snow has been overperforming, and quite literally there's no expectations that this thing would drop 15, 16 inches of snow in southwestern Kansas, which it did. So at this point, I would say that a good 5 inches could be possible across a certain location where the heavy snow sets up. Even if it's warm, even if it only accumulates on grassy surfaces, when you have heavy snowfall rates, that usually overcomes the warmth and the salt or any byproducts of that, rock salt put on the cement and asphalt. That could definitely overcome that as well. So 5 inches, I would say 4 or 5 inches still possible across some locations. Again, mainly centered across that southeastern Kansas place this time, and spreading a little bit into Missouri, though nothing near compared to what we saw in southwestern Kansas. Also, a little bit of a reminder, there could be some scattered snow showers, snow squalls across the Midwest in the next coming hours. It doesn't look too impressive at all, but it could, hinder your travel if the one sets up or comes through. Those tend to bring down the visibilities pretty drastically under a short amount of time, so those are usually the worst. You can see right there even a little bit of lake effect, also across the Illinois time and into Indiana. We'll see. Again, it doesn't seem too impactful, but it doesn't take much for there to be a big impact. So thank you guys so much for watching. Consider liking the video, consider subscribing to this channel. I'll catch you all guys in the next episode. See ya. Bye.